Alright, so now that I have my coordinates and my grid done on my photograph, I want to create the grid for my final draft. Now my final draft grid is going to have the same number of boxes, except instead of them being half-inch boxes like these are, they're going to be 1-inch boxes. So we're essentially taking this picture and we're doubling the size. Okay, so I'm going to put this one aside, and here's my final draft paper. I'm going to start the same way by lining my ruler up with the bottom of my paper, making sure that my 0 is on the corner. And since we're using whole inches this time, all I have to do is put a mark at the whole inch mark. So that's going to be where you have your numbers. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're moving from half inch to whole inch. This is going to enlarge our picture. So I've got my ruler zeroed up, and I'm going to go down the line and just put my marks at the whole inch. You want to make sure your paper doesn't slide, otherwise your measurements will not be a whole inch apart. Alright, so now that I got to the end, I'm going to slide down and line up to make sure that I have my whole inch and I do perfectly the edge of my paper matches up. Alright. I then need to do the y-axis. So I'm lining my paper up and I'm putting 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see I left a little bit of an edge? That way I could get my pencil mark on my paper. And again, my 9 matches up perfectly with the edge of my paper. And just like before, we need to go around and do the entire edge of the paper so that I can get straight lines all the way across. So I'm 0 up my ruler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is on my edge. 0 up my ruler again. I'm leaving that little space so that I can make my pencil mark. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then remember I need my inches, so I'm going to line up those 2 marks with those inches, and I'm going to put in my 3 here. Okay. Now I need to connect my points to create my straight line. So I'm going to start over here on the left side. I'm lining up my ruler with the 2 lines I made, and I'm tracing my line, and I'm moving to the next one. Line it up, trace it. Line it up, trace it. Line up, trace, line it up, trace it, trace it, trace it. Make sure that's good. If you move too quickly, you might end up tracing the wrong line, so please double check that your ruler is matched up each time. I almost just made that mistake trying to move too fast. You'll end up with a crooked line. Okay. Now, you notice my ruler doesn't stretch all the way across to the other end. So in order to solve that problem, I'm going to measure along this middle line with my inch mark so that I can line this point up with a point in the center and then line that point up with this point over here to make sure that my point, or to that I get a straight line. So I'm going to turn it to the side and I'm going to 0 up my ruler again. I'm going to go along my inch marks. And now I have a midpoint to help connect my edges. So I'm going to line my ruler up with my first point on my y-axis with my middle point along one of my y lines, trace it, and then move my ruler, line them up again so that I continue to have a straight line. Okay. If it's a little bit off, that's okay. As you can see, mine are all a little bit off on the other side, but that's all right. This is kind of like when we were working on portraits and we put in our guidelines. This method is all here to help guide us in how we're going to draw our photograph on our final draft. Please make sure you're using pencil. You are going to eventually want to erase some of these lines so that they don't show up in your final artwork. Oh, I made a mistake there. Let me go back and fix that line. My ruler moved, so I got a curved line. Do you see how it curved off? So I went back and retraced it so that I have that straight line. And I can go ahead and erase that extra there so I know not to pay attention to that part of the line. One thing I want to also point out is that your ruler is not a perfect inch apart. Do you see how it kind of overlaps on the edges? So please don't just try to trace the width of your ruler, especially since some of these wooden rulers are not straight. All right, so now I've got my grid. The last thing I need to do is label my axes just like the one on my photograph. So my x-axis is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Same number, and I should have the same letters going up. So I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Okay? They match perfectly. So remember in the first video we looked at this line that moved from B1 over to A3. This is how you're going to translate your image from here onto here. So that line starts a little bit above halfway in the B box on the 0 of the x-axis. So I'm going to start a little bit above the middle on my B, and I'm going to move to a little bit underneath the halfway point on the edge of the 1 and 2. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw that line here. I see that it goes through the bottom corner, so I'm going to continue it through the bottom corner into my A2, and it kind of ends all the way in the bottom of the A4. Okay, so I started here, continued my line, and I ended there. This is how you're going to translate your drawing. You're going to look for your major lines and shapes in here to translate them over onto your final draft. I see another clear line over here stretching from my E1 all the way over to E5. So to make it clear, I'm going to trace it in my photograph, and then I'm going to translate that here. It starts very close to the bottom of the E. I'm going to start towards the bottom of the E. I see it kind of curves up a little bit, and it ends about halfway in my 5 box. So my 5 box halfway is about there. So I want to connect this line to that point. Okay. I then have the horizon line here that kind of goes zigzagged from the top of my E almost into F, dips down, comes back up, and then it comes back down. Okay. This is what I'm looking for from you to translate your photograph to your final draft.